I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask our general counsel to verify a meeting quorum.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. There have been no matters that have been brought to my attention subsequent to posting the agenda. So I'm now going to move to item 4 and ask if there is public comment from any member of the public regarding any matter not on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Looks like we have one person that would like to speak, Rick Bonilla. And when you are ready, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Andrea. My name is Rick Bonilla. I am the Deputy Mayor of the City of San Mateo. I thank you for this opportunity to speak. Looking at the agenda, I want to say that I noticed that there is no discussion of, and I know there's plenty of business on the agenda, but still looking at and thinking about future policies, especially workforce policies. I want to thank the committee and the board for the work that has been done on developing the interim workforce policies for the long duration storage project. But I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that there will need to be additional policies going forward, especially when I see that we're looking at RFI for under item 6F2 or II. RFI for procurement to meet CPUC mandates. So there will be other projects. And I just want to remind that it would be good if we got somebody working on that sooner rather than later. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Rick. And Chair, I see no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Any members of the board who have any questions about the minutes or the items on the consent agenda? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
This is Sonoma. I would move adoption of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, a voice vote is adequate on this. Does anyone oppose adoption of the consent agenda? Hearing none, consent agenda, it carries.
Great, thank you. We're now going to the regular agenda and item 6A. It's the ad hoc committee report selection of the general manager. So we had an ad hoc committee comprised of Tom Habashi, Lori Mitchell, Don Weiss, and myself related to the selection of the general manager. You have a staff report and contract. And what we are asking for the board's approval is to approve an agreement with Tim Haynes of Grid and Power Symmetry, LLC for interim general manager services. I'll open it up for maybe any questions on the staff report and agreement before we get to a motion, discussion, and public comment. Any questions? All right, so let me then ask the board if someone would make a motion to approve this resolution.
I'll move. It's Barbara Hale moving. I've worked with Tim before. I'm comfortable with this recommendation. Thank you to the committee.
This is Lori, I'll second.
That's great. So I'm going to see if there are any public comment. No, I'll bring it back to the board and we'll take a vote. And then after that, I'm going to ask Tim to say a few words to address the board. So maybe before we take a vote, I should say a little bit about, you have seen his background here, but Tim has an illustrious career in public power. His most recent work was the general manager of the state water contractors. And prior to that, he has worked as a consultant. He also worked as an advisor at the CAISO and as deputy director at California Department of Water Resources. So a long career in public power, and we're very excited to have him lead the organization for the next phase of our development. So with that, maybe I'll take it to the General Counsel for a vote.
Resolution 210610, Central Coast Community Energy. We have Mr. Hofstreeter today. I believe that we do. Clean Power SF,
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy. Marin Clean Energy.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. Peninsula Clean Energy.
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy.
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power.
Yes.
Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
The resolution carries.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Tim. And I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself to the board and say a few words, please. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Just briefly, I'm really excited about the opportunity to serve the board, the CC8 member agencies, and the customers that you all serve. My view is that you've made remarkable progress in decarbonizing the grid. Here we are now in the throes of a heat storm that is going to challenge the grid. And this is but a harbinger of what it is that we're going to experience. And so for me, I look at the circumstances, and I think that it's the necessary and right thing for you to ask CC Power to see if you're able to help with the challenges to the power grid that have dogged the state for a long time. I am keenly aware that there are other projects and programs that you all have been thinking about CC Power taking on. And what I'd like to be able to do in the first couple of weeks that I'm in office is be able to come meet you and your team and your offices, be able to get a better insight into how it is that you think the long duration storage projects are going to be able to help you meet the needs of your community, and then look beyond that and to see when and how do we bring on additional projects and programs that you're interested in CC Power taking on. And so I just thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to serve you in this capacity. And I'll be giving you a phone call in order to be able to begin that dialogue. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Welcome again. So now we are going to move to item 6C and consider and possibly approve a resolution, 6B, which is a resolution commending and thanking Jim Shetler for his service to CC Power. So Jim has worked, we have a resolution in the packet, and we'll entertain a motion a little while later. And also I'd like to say a few words and then open it up to the board to say a few words before we take a vote. And then after that, we'll have Jim have the opportunity to address the board. So I just wanted to thank Jim for joining us. He joined us before we formed CC Power. He was critical in the formation. And I think working with all of you, both with the long duration storage RFO, all the changes we had with the budget, and then of course, engaging with various stakeholders on policy development that was mentioned earlier in our meeting. So very grateful for his service. Jim has had a long and illustrious career with public power, And I hope this will be one more feather in your public power cap, Jim. So we will really miss you over here, but we do also understand the need to spend more time with your family. So thank you very much. And I'm going to ask Andrea to share her screen in recognition of your efforts. We also are providing you a wooden plaque here that has a map of the service territory represented by CC Power, and also a note from all of us thanking you for your contributions and serving as the agency's first general manager. So with that, we can stop the screen share, and we will be mailing that to your home, Jim. And why don't I entertain a motion for approval of the resolution, and then we can take comments after the second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that would be Matthew Marshall and Jan Pepper. So let me ask if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on this item. Not seeing any, I'll bring it back to the board for any comments prior to taking a vote. So, Jeff?
I'll be brief. I want to thank you, Jim, for your calm and competent way of launching this incredible new entity. I think those two elements have served us really well, and I wish you luck in what comes next. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
So we go with Jan Pepper, followed by Mitch.
Thanks, Krish. Jim, thank you so much for everything you've done. I've worked closely with you on the labor policies, and I really appreciate your dedication and how much you reached out to the labor groups and all the other groups to try to put together a policy. So I really appreciate your great efforts on that, and I think we got a long way with that. So anyway, enjoy your family. That's the most important, of course, and we will miss you.
Thank you, Jan.
Mitch?
Yeah, Jim, we only had a chance to work together for a very short period of time. I just wanted to add my thanks, mostly to helping VCE on board. So appreciate that, and best of luck on your next endeavors.
Thank you, Mitch.
Right. So let's take a vote on, it says possibly approve the resolution. So let's see how this vote goes.
Clean Power SF.
Yes.
Rin Clean Energy.
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy.
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy.
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power.
Yes.
Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
And I still think 3CE and East Bay are absent.
Hey, Tony, I just signed on. This is Nick from East Bay.
Nick, would you like to vote on this resolution commending Chandler for his service?
I will vote yes.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, speaking from the forested north, I don't know if you've been to a lumber yard recently, but we were originally going to go with a gold plaque, but we wanted to do something more extravagant, so we went with wood instead.
Thank you. So Tim starts tomorrow. So Jim will be the general manager through the end of the day today. Jim, we'd like to give you time to address the board on whatever you want to address the board on.
Well, now that you passed the resolution, I guess I'm free to say almost anything I want. But I, first of all, want to very much thank the board for the recognition. It certainly wasn't a requirement, but is much appreciated, and especially the plaque. And I agree, it will be more valuable than gold in the current situation that we find ourselves. Secondly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to work with you. I'm really glad I got to know the board and the members of the board on working with you. We've had some interesting challenges, and I know that not everything that we've done has been unanimous, but I think we got there. And I think we've jointly created a foundation that I know the board and Mr. Haynes can build upon. And I look forward to seeing the results of that foundation and look forward to seeing where CC Power evolves. I would be remiss if I didn't make a couple observations. Call it the interim general manager's parting shots, however you want to look at it. One is, and this has come up in board meetings in the past, I do think it's probably time to talk about some delegations of authority. I think we've ended up bringing what I would call minor issues to the board for approval that probably could be handled differently if we had appropriate delegations for that. So I would encourage the board to work with your new interim general manager and start developing those delegations. It would probably relieve the board of some of those minor decisions that you don't have to be making. And then secondly, I'd like to add on my observation around the comment we had earlier in the meeting, and that is on the policies. I know we have different opinions among the members about how policies should reflect CC Power and whether we need detailed project focused policies at a general level, or whether we should have more general high level policies and be specific on each project on how project conditions would be imposed. I do think that it would be appropriate for the agency and the board to look at policy development in advance of any next project we might decide to take on. And I'm not suggesting what those policies look like, whether we have detailed general policies or whether we have high level policies. But I think there was a implication on the part of the organization that we would address that before we focused on any new activities or projects. And so I would encourage the board to take a look at that in the next month or two to see if we can't come to agreement on what those policies should be looking like. I think that would be appropriate. And with that, I think I'll close by saying, Mr. Haynes, congratulations. I look forward to working with you in the transition period. And again, to the board and the members, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for the recognition.
Thank you, Jim. And with that, we will move to item 6C, which we are asking for a budget adjustment to reflect the transition that Jim just talked about and to accommodate VCE's request to participate in the long duration storage project. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Chris, could you tee up the slide deck, please? Thank you. Let's go to the next slide, please. So as the chair mentioned, we do have 2 adjustments to the budget that we'd like to have the board consider. First of all is an adjustment for the transition for the interim general manager. And then secondly is an adjustment to accommodate VCE's participation in the LDF project. Next slide, please. So in developing the budget for 2021, we did not make any assumptions around a transition between interim general managers or any overlap that might be necessary to allow for that. In discussions with the board chair and with Mr. Haynes, we did determine that it would be beneficial to the organization to allow for some transition time. Based on that discussion, what we have or what we are recommending is that we have kind of a full overlap for 2 weeks, the last half of June, which would need roughly another 30 hours of time. between Mr. Haynes and myself. And then in addition, some as needed consultation that I could make available to Mr. Haynes in July. Any last minute questions, and we're assuming about 10 hours for that, for a total of 40. Based on expenditures to date, my belief is that we could cover about half of those hours within the existing budget, which leaves the remaining 20 hours. And so with that, I'm suggesting that we add $5,000 to the budget to be allocated in June and July. This would increase the, I'm also suggesting that we allocate that about $1,500 to the general support, $3,500 to the LDF project, which would adjust those budgets as shown on the slide for an overall increase from 501,610 to 506,610. So with that, I may stop there to see if there's any questions from the board on this particular item. Hearing none, next slide, please. Second item is Valley Clean Energy has expressed an interest in participating in the LDF project. They've had our estimated capacity requirement of about 10 megawatts. We've also discussed with them the fact that in joining the LDF project, there is an anticipation that they would cover their share of the original phase 1 development costs, and that would be about $1,100. In addition, VCE has also stated their commitment to cover their share of the phase 2 cost in the budget. And right now, that's also a little over $1,100. And I might note that for phase 1, participation was on a per participant basis. So with VCE adding, that would move us from 8 to 9 participants. And then for phase 2 in the 2021 budget, that is based on a percentage of your projected capacity requirement. I'd also note that this change does not result in any overall budget increase. And the contrary, for the other participants, it results in a minor individual budget reduction. Any questions on this?
Jim, just for clarity, I heard you
Yes.
say 1,100, but I think the slide says
I'm
11,000.
sorry, 11,000. My apologies.
So the slide is correct. That's all I
slide is
wanted to
correct.
just confirm. Thank you.
Yep. My apologies. All right, let's go to the next slide then. So 2 main requested actions here. One would be to approve the increase in the general manager services budget of $5,000 to accommodate the transition and the allocation noted between general support and LDF project support. And then the second would be to approve the adjustment in the LDF project allocations to accommodate VCE participation at 10 megawatts. And that would also include approval of the $11,100 for reimbursement of phase 1 costs. And we are suggesting that those be placed in a reserve account for future decision on what we might want to do with that. And I believe there's a resolution in the packet that accommodates this. So, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any other questions, staff would request the board consider the resolution and approve the request.
Thank you, Jim. Let me ask if there are any clarifying questions from the board before we go to public comment. Not seeing any. Any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Don't see any hands raised, so we'll bring it back to the board. Discussion. Not seeing any hands raised. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I could, on the discussion piece, if I could just ask if we could possibly break this into 2 separate actions. I plan on abstaining from the second, but would like to vote for the first.
Okay. General Counsel Braun, we good with that? We'll take 2 votes.
We are. So what I would ask is that we vote with respect to the, I guess there's 2 options. One, we can split it up as Director Sears indicated, and I can organize that appropriately as we have the vote, or we could just move forward and it's a pleasure of the board and Director Sears as far as if he just abstained on the whole thing. Obviously, if there was support among the membership, it would still carry. So I'll leave it to the board's discretion on how you want to deal with that. And I understand his desire to abstain on part of it.
And I'm fine up from abstaining for both if it's more streamlined.
Okay, then let's just move forward with 1 vote, Tony.
We have resolution as presented in the packet, 210611, to revise allocations of costs to reflect the transition of the general manager. Clean Power SF,
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy.
Just a point of order. Did we get a motion in a second before we called the order? Did I miss that?
Oh, thank you, Jeff. We did not.
I don't recall.
Yep.
I move the item. I move the item.
And I will second it.
Okay, right. So that
And I
would be,
vote yes.
that would be Nick and Jeff. And we did get, so Tony, back to you.
Start over. We got a motion, a second. Thank you, Jeff. Clean Power SF,
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy.
Yeah.
Marin Clean Energy,
Yeah.
Peninsula Clean Energy,
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy,
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power,
Yes.
and Valley Clean Energy.
Abstain.
And the motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much. And Mitch, thank you for participating in the LDS project. I have 9 participants. That's phenomenal.
Appreciate the consideration and great to be part of the discussion.
Yeah, great. We're now moving to item 6D, and Jim is going to handle this.
I think, Tony, were you going to handle this one or am I handling it?
You're handling it, but you have some remarks for the board as we consider what we're doing here.
All right. So the next item up is a revision to the cost sharing agreement. This accommodates the addition of VCE to the phase 2 project. And I think this may be another example of where probably some delegations of authority would have streamlined this. So again, I would like to suggest to the board that we consider delegations to simplify some of the processes here. But we do have the revised agreement in the packet and would request that the board authorize the revision of the agreement and for the new interim general manager to execute the agreement with the members.
I would note, as we develop the cost sharing agreement, and because obviously the newness of the agency, but also the newness of the process for the members, there's a lot of concern about ensuring that we didn't exceed, not to exceed amounts, both in the aggregate and also individually, and also that we had member approval for changes. And in going through the cost sharing agreement, we made a determination there really was no supportable alternative other than to amend it. But I would like to just present and tee up for the board going forward. And I think as it relates to a similar theme that Mr. Shetler has raised, that I think we'll have an eye towards providing a little more flexibility here so that we make things that are highly supported, ministerial or otherwise, don't have significant financial consequences, that we aren't approval process as at the individual members. Really for CC Power, it's not that big of a lift, but the actual, triggering in internal member approval processes, I think it's probably overkill. So as an appropriate time, we'll come back to the board, probably within the context of the delegations and things like that, to see, provide some operating assumptions that we can help streamline some of these processes.
Yeah, so in other words, 19 signatures for $11,000 reapportionment is probably a bit much. So, all right, so let me ask if there's any questions and clarification on this item from board members. Not seeing any. Members of the public, any comments or questions? Say comments. Not seeing any. I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and entertaining a motion. Looks like Jeff.
Sonoma would move this item and further request that our new interim general manager, Tim Haynes, think about in the next few months, bringing an item to the board to delegate some authorities to you and your team along these lines. I think that's a good suggestion from our past interim general manager, and that's not part of the motion, but it's a personal request as opposed to board direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Laurie, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. Tony, let's get to vote.
Clean Power SF.
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy. Nick, are you on mute? Come back. Marin Clean Energy.
Yeah.
Peninsula Clean Energy.
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy.
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power.
Yes.
Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
East Bay Clean Energy in attendance.
No, don't see him
The
on the
resolution
list.
carries.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. We're now moving to item 6E, which is the interim general manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board members. Chris, could you tee up the slide deck, please? Thank you. Next slide, please. So it'll be a fairly brief update. A couple administrative items I wanted to update the board on, and then kind of a high-level overview of the LDF project. Next slide, please. From an administrative standpoint, we are still waiting feedback from the Secretary of State's office on the conflict of interest code. We know they have it. We know they're reviewing it, but no firm date yet on when we might see comments back. And then secondly, I did want to let the board know that we did receive the official notice of filing from the Secretary of State's office of the Joint Powers Agreement. So we are formally official. Next slide, please. On the LDF project, a couple brief update items. One, on the shortlist status, working with the Oversight Committee and the members on expected participation capacity targets based on the recent PUC order. We do expect that based on the evaluation from the proposed order and updates from the developers that there'll be some streamlining of the shortlist. and we're in the process of evaluating that. And probably would expect in the next 1 or 2 meetings in the POC, we'll have that resolved. And then near-term steps, the non-disclosure agreements, exclusivity agreements, and bid deposits of the 5 participating shortlisted right now. We have 4 that have submitted that's information. We have started some initial discussions with each one of the developers to get geared up for starting formal negotiations. And I know we just amended the phase 2 cost sharing agreement, but I believe as of today, we have the original version of the agreement approved by all the members. Next slide, please. Longer term, we are expecting negotiations will run at least through August, probably into early September. Based on the results of those negotiations, assuming we do end up with a final set of project or projects in accordance with the JPA agreement, those will be publicly posted for public information. And then we would initiate both CC Power and participant approval processes in the fall of 2021 with a goal of final approvals by the end of the year. And that would include both the phase 3 project participation agreement and operating agreements. And I would note that when we approved the 2021 budget, we approved the LDF project funding through September. One of the items that I know will be on Mr. Haynes's action item list will be to look at what would be the budget requirements in order to complete the LDF project the 4th quarter of this year to accommodate the approval process. So there would be a budget adjustment that would be required for that. And I think all I have open is any questions from the board on any of the update.
I think, Jim, it's more of a comment just to emphasize the last point you made. When we adopted the budget, either at I think the first meeting of the year, we kind of bifurcated it. Our budget year goes through December, and we adopted the general administrative budget through December, but the project budget only through the end of September. And the project budget is pretty much about 80% of the total JPA budget. So it will be critical to get that approved no later than September, and we'll bring it back to you in August. Any questions for Jim? Not seeing any public comment on this item? Not seeing any. Thank you, Jim. Now moving to item 6F, discussion of any individual member items. Before we start talking about the first one, I just thought I'd bring up, we're just entering into a heat storm. And I know that all of us have either activated demand side load management programs, talking to our suppliers, and also activating our communications to our community. So I just wanted to have a bit of just tee this up. If any of the board members have any comments that they wanted to share on how you are addressing it, feel free to take some time to do so. Not seeing any. Oh, I do see Jeff, please.
Just briefly, the general announcement and your summer capacity alert announcement actually intersect for me. We opened our Advanced Energy Center yesterday and welcome any of you to come and visit anytime you like. You can hold a staff meeting in it, and our cost of entry is that we get to show you around for 30 minutes. So we would welcome you to come up and use the facility. It's about 10,000 square feet. It is 100% dedicated to converting all buildings to only clean, renewable electric power. So everything in it is designed to streamline that process, connect you with contractors who are trained, get financing, 0% interest, pay it back on your bill. All the technology, almost all the technology, I should qualify, is completely free to care customers. And they pay the installation cost. And so the reason why it intersects with your comment, Chair Balachandran, is that it every technology we host there is grid enabled and part of our Grid Savvy program, which allows us to dispatch for grid reliability. So beginning in 2016, we had a demand response program that we were playing around with. And in 2018, we began to dispatch to offset RA obligations and to shape our customer loads in more significant quantities. Last year was the first time we started to play around with dispatching to specifically address stage 2 and 3 alerts. Well, stage 2 alerts, stage 3 is too late. And so we're using that platform now, and our learning, and the thing that I really want to pass on to this team is, so far, dispatching electric car chargers, even smart thermostats, fairly low value for summer afternoon capacity issues, which is interesting. Dispatching water heaters turns out to be fantastically high value. What we're learning is that water heaters don't care at all when they're heated. The insulation is really, really good. So you can heat them in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, depending on if you've got excess or too little. And so we're partnering with the National Advanced Water Heating Initiative and also with PNNL on trying to expand that learning and seeing if that works in other markets. It works in ours. We don't know if it's a general result or not, but what we're learning is that heat pump water heaters might be better than batteries in terms of shaping grid power, and much, much cheaper. So we would love to test that with other people working on that same technology and seeing if that's correct. So anyone who wants to play around, come up, we'll talk.
Jeff, that's phenomenal. We will be following up with you, but just very inspirational. Thank you. Lori?
Yeah, thank you, Girish, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about what we're all doing to improve the grid reliability. So we are also reaching out to our customers, in particular our top 25 energy users, as well as testing out a few new ways to communicate with our communities, including texting and also email alerts. But the other thing I wanted to plug is a challenge with Ohm Connect that we've participated in. It's called the City Energy Challenge, where cities across California are competing to see who can save the most energy. So very proud to have our mayor here in San Jose, Mayor Liccardo, leading that. We hope to win this challenge. If you're not familiar with it, it's a partnership with Connect where they give away free smart thermostats to up to 1 million California households. So really exciting, and hopeful we're going to win this friendly challenge.
Okay, gauntlet has been thrown. Any other comments?
Sorry, folks, I just got off a board meeting that started at 9 o'clock in the morning. I thought I was going to be done by 1, but hey, silly me, right?
Yeah, Tom, we'll get to your item just shortly. We are just on item 6F, in general, talking about anything your agency is doing to prepare for this heat wave and reliability. So it's a bit of an open mic.
Okay.
And at SVCE, we are running a few programs. We do have a program called EV Energy. We started off with 75 EVs that we provide them an app where they can basically put in some objectives about whether they want to save money, they want to save on emissions, and this basically connects up with their car and their home charger and manages their charging. We are expanding it to 1,000 EVs by the end of this year. So we've actually like quadrupled our budget. We are starting right now. And we're going to align some of the messages to these customers with KISO, Flex Alerts in stage 1 and stage 2. We also have a load modification program that we're doing along with PCE and EBCE, which has been run by Sunrun. And that's a program that'll actually, what should I say, become more mature in 2023, but the installations have started this summer already. Okay. Not seeing any other hands raised here. I'm going to ask if there's any input on future projects. Mike, maybe we'll start with you on input on future projects, or if you want to touch on the previous item too. Go ahead.
Yeah, just touching on the previous item. MC has a demand flex market program, and we issued our first event today to reduce load. Just sharing that out.
Great. Any other input on future project ideas? We have collected several ideas from the board over the last few months, and that'll be part of the handover to Tim in your conversations with Tim over the next few weeks. Feel free to share with him additional ideas you may want CC Power to consider. So with that, I'm going to go to Romanette 2, item 1, RFI for procurement to meet CPUC mandates. So with the midterm procurement, oh, sorry, Jan Pepper.
Yeah, thanks, Garish. Just back on item 1. I do want to second what Jim said earlier today, that we continue working on the policies. And now that Tim is on board, that we were waiting for the transition of the new interim general manager, but I would like us to continue to work on the policies and get those set before we do embark on some other projects. So I think we have our committee and we're ready to go whenever Tim's ready.
Good. Thank you, Jan. And next is Barbara.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to second Jan's suggestion. And I was not eligible to be on the committee when the committee was formed. I'd like to see if I could get on the committee and join that conversation, please.
Let me take it offline, Barbara.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not officially on the committee, please know I'd like to chat with committee members.
Yeah, just the back of my mind is just from a Brown Act perspective. I'll just work it out with the general counsel, maybe other members of the committee, in terms of your interest. So good. So going to item 1, RFI for procurement to meet CPUC mandates. The midterm procurement order has come out, and a lot of moving parts there in terms of long lead time resources, long duration storage, and other resources. So there may be opportunities for CC Power to issue an RFI on some of these. I believe the Project Oversight Committee has started discussions on it. So I just wanted to mention it to the board that we may bring something back at the August meeting if that's what board members want. We'll bring it back in terms of maybe issuing another RFI, similar to what we did, or rather what MCE led last year, and 12 of us joined their efforts on the long duration storage project. So we will look at that through the POC. So please do connect with your POC representative if you're interested. Going to item 2, Tom Habashi, offshore wind procurement.
Sorry, I have no idea that somehow I'm involved in this. Can you just tell me what What the deal is, I know that
Yeah.
we've been supportive, very supportive of offshore wind, especially coming off Morro Bay.
Yeah,
As you
I
probably
think-
know them.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Tom, you had requested that we add this to the agenda for this meeting. I think
Oh,
it
yes.
was right past the midterm procurement order and Governor Newsom opening up waters off the coast. I think that's when this interest came up.
I got you. I think we need to actually not just think about offshore wind. I think we probably, given what needs to be done over the next few years, we need to be thinking about geothermal as well. As you probably all know, that we are required now to have some resource with that has a load factor of 85% or more. And I'm not really sure if there's anything out there that has that kind of characteristics other than geothermal. And there is somebody that's been waving that flag for quite some time down in LA saying, can you guys come in? I get 1,000 megawatt worth of geothermal to build. So I think we collectively should be thinking about both these projects for the long term. For the wind, it's going to be a bit of time before we get there. But for the geothermal, we probably can do something a little quicker. And I think going at it one at a time is not a good idea. I think this is almost perfect for a collective action.
Great. So I think both these items, the RFI for procurement to meet PUC mandates, and I think it's basic. Why don't we get the POC? Each of us can talk to our POC members to express our interest and get it back to the board. Any comments from the board on anything on item F? Let's go with Matthew, followed by Jeff.
I was just gonna, comment on the offshore wind, piece as far as if folks haven't been following that, the sort of deadlock on the Central Coast potential federal lease areas got, resolved and is moving forward. And so, it's a counting the Central Coast and the North Coast, it's enough area for about like 4.5 gigawatts of offshore wind. Now the gigawatts up our way, which is less than half of that total, is much harder to develop in the near term, due to transmission constraints. But the Central Coast area is, if I was going to look into a crystal ball, I'd say a small project up here might be first, potentially, but then, at scale on the Central Coast, and then, that might open up more interest in transmission upgrades for the North Coast region. And so that'll be probably about a year process between now until there's an actual federal lease auction sometime in 2022, at which point there will be, multiple developers that will have, site control to begin doing the environmental study, process and starting to move forward with permitting. So.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Jeff?
Just wanted to share briefly, I was reading the budget, state budget, and yesterday I learned the legislature passed $13.5 million to study offshore wind. That was encouraging. And I do think Chair Hochschild at the Energy Commission is a major proponent and could be an ally of that resource type. I think I've also learned that Congressman Mike Thompson has been pushing fairly steadily on geothermal, given that it's in his district, to be included in the Green Act and to have investment tax credits. And his office tells me, so subject to, seeing what actually happens, they believe there's a pretty good shot of keeping that part of the bill as it moves through the process. So there was some reported optimism about the tax credit extension for geothermal that could improve the financial conditions that I wanted to share. We'll see what actually gets voted out, but I wanted to share that.
That's great. Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Okay, great. So before adjourning, let me just say our next meeting is going to be August 18th. We'll probably talk about the budget then. We'll take the next step on policy development. And then Tony will also be talking to us about future meetings post September 30th and the expiry of the governor's order about how we would be meeting post that time. And I'll end the meeting by thanking Jim Shetler again. Excellent job. And with that, we are adjourned.
Take care, everybody.